Morality may consist solely in the courage of making a choice. Leon Bloom. 28 weeks later. Trigger warnings for this episode are abandonment. Please stay safe and stay sane. Thanks for listening. Yo, what is up? I'm Zachary Ballard.
And I am Chris Vlamakis.
And we are back with Feed Don't Eat Your Brain. Feed Don't Eat Your Brain.
Feet don't eat your brain.
Feet
eat.
Okay. So we did 28 weeks later. I got Chris. He's not busy this night, so we're gonna do it. So yeah. Would you think? I know a little bit of your opinions on
the movie specifically.
Yeah.
I thought it was. I mean, this isn't the first time I saw it, but it's the first time in probably like 10 years that I've seen it. I thought it did well in most areas to continue and convey this type of the quote-unquote zombie/rage virus that it has in this movie, and continuing it to a little bit of a different aspect. It's not a direct sequel technically because none of the characters are the same, but I think it fell a little bit flatter in a lot of areas compared to the first one. But I still think it's still.
I think it's a great
good movie.
Still.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think the main thing I saw in this movie was one of the main things I saw was the choices that the sergeant or the general had to make in whether to kill people or not.
Yeah. It all goes around this whole like what I would like. It's obviously, as the name suggests, 28 weeks later. It's been 28 weeks since the major outbreak of this virus hit. And unlike a lot of other zombie-esque things, these people affected by this can slowly starve to death. And they have been rebuilding, and obviously, it never really explains why. I'm assuming because the British government is just completely screwed.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming the American government's come in and try to repopulate people into a clean green zone, and this general has to be a hard ass because who knows? Because like he probably almost certainly led people during the initial like infection, and probably saw firsthand, and this killed millions of people.
Yeah, and I mean like So the first thing we saw with that is that he had a choice whether to like because this woman came in and she had a healed bite mark. And so,
she was genetically immune to turning into one of these creatures, but she was technically a carrier. And as soon as he found out about that, he's like, "No, that she's a threat if like just existing, and so we should get rid of her."
Well, like the head doctor was like, "No, we can't. Like we need to. And this she could be a cure. For this."
And both of them are right. And like for movie purposes, like obviously his was more like better for the movie to happen than just like. Instead of him being like, you know what, you're right, and then 10 minutes later she's like with vials and like Eureka, and the movie's 30 minutes long. But like in a scenario like that where it's just like literally it shows what happens when literally one person gets infected and no one expects it. Like again, like the first breakout, no one expects it. No one knows what's going on. Everyone's panicking and everything like that. Then in this one, none of the soldiers were playing practical jokes on each other that they were
like
infected.
Pretending to be zombies, which I thought was wild.
Yeah, I thought it was wild. I would expect more like accidental shots to be fired, I think, but they were so complacent because it had been like I think they said the last of the infected starved 5 weeks into it.
Yeah,
which means this is 23 weeks later, like months later, and they've been in this green zone guarding this place for weeks upon weeks, and so everyone thinks that they're fine. Like everyone's complacent and calm and saying that, well, there's 30 people with sniper rifles at the rooftop. Every corner has guys with machine guns. There's armed trucks. While really the only guy that really is uptight is this general. The whole time he's just like looking, making sure everything's okay. But like they also show the humanity of him too, because like when he gives that order to carpet bomb that whole area, and it shows because like they're killing people. Probably not infected.
Yeah,
like,
well, we see them like
he orders open fire because like one of the big things about specifically 28 days and 28 weeks later is that it's very hard to tell the difference between a person that's infected and a person that's just simply running and panicking.
Yeah.
And especially it was nighttime and
Hmm.
there was just so many.
And all the soldiers, they were like, I can't tell
They're
who's
like
who.
all they could only tell is when they were already on top of like attacking
And
someone.
then they had to kill the
They
someone.
had to kill
Yeah.
two at
Yeah.
that, at
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
least two at that point.
Uh-huh.
And so like that brings the whole like, what do you do? Do you kill the few, which is in this case is technically thousands of people, to make
Hmm.
sure the outbreak doesn't get out and kill like tens of thousands to millions
Yeah,
of people?
exactly.
And so yeah,
Well, it's just interesting because I mean, even when the soldiers saw that people weren't infected, they were still like, we got to kill them. These are orders.
yeah, they must have definitely like, because again it goes back to who knows what these soldiers, because like it vaguely talks about in the first movie that there were infections and outbreaks all over the world, and like they mentioned the United States,
Hmm.
but like there's only happened in like pocketed areas, and they were able to eventually get control over it.
Yeah.
But who knows like what these soldiers have to do, had to do before, and now they have to relive this again. And most people
Hmm.
in this scenario probably had to relive like, oh crap, I thought this we all thought this was over like for a moment. But yeah,
Does that remind you of something?
the Titanic.
No, I
It
mean,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was talking about this a moment ago with your with Elena, and like that is probably one of the most realistic things, is that like when there is a lull in something, sure it might be over, but like you have to still like all the professionals, like you still see people like whenever they step out of the green zone, all these guys are wearing literal hazmat suits
Yeah,
and containment and everything like that. And it is, we're going to say the big no word, COVID.
yeah.
And it's like, yeah, so all these people are just like, yeah, we need to follow these rules, and it might suck right now,
Hmm.
but like if you don't, people are going to die. And
Yeah,
like and it's very easy to compare compared to like, ooh, the zombie outbreak. It's kind of like, oh, because like obviously they're diseases and that,
yeah. I mean,
but
it's
everything like,
it's not exactly like COVID, obviously,
well,
but I
no,
mean,
no,
like
you can compare
people
it,
got
yeah.
comfortable, and I mean, honestly, like I feel like everyone got comfortable
there's
because
one
we.
there's one lady in an attic eating trash right now that's immune to COVID, and then
Yeah.
she
Well,
has
like I mean, most of us got the vaccine, and like,
I would not say most of us, unfortunately,
well,
but
more than half, at least. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. I don't know what the numbers are, but continue.
Yeah, yeah, but uh, like a lot of us got the vaccine, and when I got the vaccine, I'm like, okay, there's light at the end of the tunnel if we just do our part, get the vaccine. But
But
then
that
this
light,
variant came along.
then that light was actually napalm fire. So no, I'm joking.
Yeah. Yeah, but then, when I don't know, it just comes down to listening to the experts and what they're talking about.
Sure.
And because you saw that a lot. Like the kids, I understand they wanted to go get like a picture of
Hmm.
their mom,
Hmm.
but I mean, they if they listened to the experts, that outbreak wouldn't have happened.
That's
And if,
true.
if the
You could,
dad did listen to the
yeah.
experts, that wouldn't have
If you,
happened,
yeah, you could put the blame on several. Well, really, you could put the blame on three different people, all members of that family,
Hmm.
technically.
Yeah.
Like, sure, the kid's going there anyways. Like, but it, like, and you could technically blame the dad on two fronts for abandoning his wife at first, and then him using his access to get into that room. But again, there's also this kind of thing. It was like, how would they have known? Like,
Yeah, they wouldn't know.
especially like the dad at that point, because how would he know kissing his wife would turn him into would turn him? Like
Yeah.
he didn't know that she was infected. They up until that point, it seemed to have been standard protocol for them to be in isolation like that.
Yeah.
And so like it's hard in the movie sense to place like a specific blame,
Yeah.
except for humans being humans and like having their emotions drive them more than logic.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. A lot of parallels. I feel like we're just in this universe of so many parallels, you know what I'm saying?
Parallelograms, rhombuses,
Yeah, yeah. All right.
trapezoids.
Um and then okay, so the next thing I want to talk about was like abandonment. I feel like
Oh,
we saw so much abandonment or like leaving people outside versus like letting them in. Like first we see it with the kid, and I mean,
no, first we see it with the wife.
well, the kid at the very beginning when
Oh, the running kid.
yeah, the running kid.
I'm not sure if I would. Would
Well,
you?
I mean, they were like debating on whether to let him in. Like
Oh,
she
yeah.
was like
I mean, it all
yeah,
comes down to survival, because like, who knows if if that kid um would have been bit or infected,
I mean,
and also who? Well, I mean, in this
zombies don't talk,
also
right?
in this universe happens really fast,
Yeah.
but like, it also did everybody know that in that exact moment? Because like, that seemed to be pretty early on in the outbreak that
Yeah.
scene happened. But then again, also it's like, one, it's a kid, Like you hear it and it's like, oh man, it's a
I
kid
guess
out
it's
there.
easy when you know the rules as an
And then
outside observer to like.
yeah, and then also like in that moment of them opening the door, is someone going is one or more of those things going to come up behind him
Yeah.
and everything like that? Like
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
is he screaming unless something's chasing after him?
Hmm.
It yeah, and with everything like it's also hard to imagine because like when you think about it, you also think about through all mediums. It didn't really talk about it in this movie, but it's like um if you're hard up for supplies and resources, taking another person in,
Hmm.
is that even like something you should do? Should you just ignore them and they have the
Yeah, I mean,
but like, and that's also a factor. And then also the cynical part of me is because I can't. I know I've seen it, but like I can't say which specific media I've seen it in. But like sometimes people will use that as like, oh hey, you open the door and then suddenly there's a group of normal people that are armed that just come in and take your stuff or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um,
It's happened in Last of Us. It's happened in
yeah,
Walking
that's
Dead.
that's what
Yeah,
I'm thinking.
yeah, yeah.
And so like there's all these different factors that may go through your head in this scenario, and the biggest one is fear.
Hmm.
Fear that even though so much has already been taken from you, what more could be taken from you? The
Yeah,
can of food that you're cherishing in this scenario, your wife or these people that I wouldn't call them all friends
yeah,
necessarily,
yeah.
but like they were stuck in this situation, and then obviously you form some form of bond to these sort of people,
Hmm.
and then once again your own life too,
Hmm.
and so like that probably that can go right into like when the husband abandons technically the kid too, but the big thing is about he abandons his wife because he's near the window and she isn't.
Yeah.
um I mean that's definitely a fight or flight like response kind of thing,
Hmm.
where and he chose flight because like that's what his instincts told him because he literally didn't see a way where he could save his wife, I'm sure like he was terrified,
Yeah.
and I can only imagine the sheer terror of that situation. And like then once he started running, there really wasn't a way for him to get back
Yeah.
because he started running and then suddenly there was like 30 of them chasing. Probably one of the scariest scenes in the movie is that first action. He's just
Yeah.
running. I would have been like, ah!
Yeah.
It's like,
Well,
get on the boat.
I mean, those zombies don't feel pain, so it's
They
like
don't
they
feel
probably
pain,
run
and
faster.
possibly, or they're just super like just overextending every muscle, or
Yeah.
like literally pure raw. I call it like bestial power, or I was
Yeah.
joking beast mode, but
Yeah.
literally every like imagine every cylinder firing at max in your body, and like they were slowly gaining on him, and if he didn't get on that boat he would have just died, and then the outbreak wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
The kids wouldn't have been brought there, they wouldn't have found their mom. Even if the kids were brought there and they did find the mom, then there wouldn't have been an outbreak. That general guy would have just went in there and shot her in the head with a pistol,
Yeah.
and like
Or
or
they would
something.
have brought her in, and then she would have died anyway because the general would have made the order.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting.
And I also
Yeah.
don't think he would be the only general in that military leader that would have made that decision. They probably all would have.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to talk about fight, flight, and freeze because here's a little story. So I was at work. I was playing this VR game, right? When we had the VR at the escape room I work at, and it's called Paranormal Activity, and it is the scariest freaking game I've ever played. And it's way scarier when it's in VR, so you feel like you're like in the world and stuff. I was going through this really scary part, and my boss grabs the chainsaw. That we have like a chainsaw for a room. He grabs the chainsaw and he like stands next to me while I'm going through the game, and he just revs it right in front of me. And I've always gotten so mad at people in movies and TV shows when like they'd see something scary and they froze, and I'm
Yeah,
like, go, go. I found out I'm a freezer. I
yeah.
freaking froze up. I like started shaking and froze to the
Again,
ground.
being from the third
Like,
person, from like where from the audience point of view of things, we can be scared but still think logically because we're not in that scenario and
yeah,
everything like that. Be
yeah,
like, what an idiot! Of course that was like the right decision. Why didn't they do that? But
yeah,
it's like, but when you're in there and it's just like all those chemicals pumping into your brain, your blood going, and then like,
yeah.
and
Well,
on top of who knows, exhaustion, any hunger, anything like that.
yeah, I
So
mean it's really easy. Like Hadestown is one of my favorite musicals, and there's a line in it that says, so like Eurydice leaves Orpheus to go live in Hadestown with Hades because she's hungry and she can't get food, and Orpheus is just writing songs, right? And like then the
living the
fate
artist
then
dream.
then when she leaves, the fates come out and they're like directly addressing the audience. They're like, you can have your principles when you have a belly full. Hunger has its way with you. There's no telling what you're gonna do. And I love that line because it's like, because you look at that and you're like, man, why didn't you help your wife? But then
Yeah,
it's it's so easy to say to have your principles when you're not in those situations.
it's
You know?
true when it's like when you have so much taken away from you and your options are almost zero options, it when something comes to you and you almost certainly jump on it and everything like that. That's why when you see certain things, it's just like, oh well, like, oh, that's why are people eating these like expired canned foods and stuff like that? And it's like, well, that's literally the only food they have.
Yeah.
And it's like, what else are they going to do? Starve?
Yeah. It's either that or starve.
It's like
you
me.
know?
If I'd go without eating for 6 hours, I'm like, no, please.
There's not much time.
There's not much time.
There's not much
Please,
time.
I'm wasting away. Please.
Yeah.
Then I eat an entire
facts.
chocolate cake by
No
myself.
cap.
So
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, chocolate cake. That sounds good, dude. Why'd you mention that?
I pull out a cake.
Yeah, and then we see like when the guy's coming with the helicopter, and he's not gonna pick up the rest of the people.
Yeah.
And he's only picking up. Yeah.
That's
that's like orders.
Yeah.
You
well,
know?
that's multi-layered because one, I think those obviously they established those two as more as closer to being friends than just like
Than
part of the
just soldiers,
same
comrades,
platoon.
Yeah.
But then also orders because like if he tried landing with those people, he literally says they'll shoot him out of the air.
Yeah.
And so he's like, it's self-preservation too.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it's just like he doesn't know these people. He's also probably afraid of getting infected as well too.
Yeah.
Like it's like if he lands, like there was at one point where he lands and they almost get on there, and there was this, in my opinion, kind of cheesy but still kind of funny helicopter scene where he kills a bunch of them. But but still, it was fun. I'm not going to dock him for being
was
fun.
Cool.
But he but like he was more than willing to like at that like abandon like 6 civilians who the soldiers clearly know that once you're infected within seconds.
Yeah.
It's like so it's like he knows that they can't actually be infected themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it's multi-layered. Like, do you abandon your fellow man for self-preservation, for orders that could preserve humanity as a whole?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. True. So I wanted to talk about the freaking dad, how Don, how like
Big Don.
He plays Rumpelstiltskin in Once Upon a Time. Fun
There's
fact.
a plug.
There's a plug for Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, how about
that show fell off though.
Just so just so you know, guys, we're only going to do shows that this particular actor is in from now on. So
yeah. Screw zombies. Screw this whole premise.
We're going to this actor
We're gonna
that
do Once Upon a Time.
We didn't
now.
bother looking up the name of this actor.
Yeah. But his character, like, I just wonder. I hate him, but it's so real. It's so realistic
very real. So,
because his kids come after he like left his wife 28 weeks later, and 28 weeks earlier he left his wife to basically die, and then we find out that she's still alive and has the cure basically, but like, and then he sees his kids and his kids are like, what happened to mom? And he's like, he tells this story about how he had no choice, he couldn't help her. And Alina called it. Alina always calls everything, by the way, in every movie,
especially
TV show.
The police on Zach. Please, somebody help us.
What?
Please.
What? Shut up! I just cut off the audio. Yeah.
Chris had to leave.
Chris, I'm gonna continue this episode.
It's very easy to be mad at him because like he does obviously
he does immoral things throughout the entire episode.
Yeah, he leaves his wife because he genuinely believes that that in that moment that only he's going to be able to survive, and then he gets his kids, and when he starts telling the story to kids, he tells 80% of the story true, and then the final part about it, he's like, yeah, I saw them bite into her and saw them tearing her apart, and then I ran, and then everything after that he told was the truth as well.
Yeah.
But and so part of me, especially the way the actor plays it and the way they wrote it, part of me popped into my head where it's later on when the kids find out the mom was alive, and then they are confronting the dad through this glass window and saying, you lied to us, you said you saw it. And he's like, what? I genuinely thought I don't think he was part of me kind of thinks he wasn't trying to lie or double down on the lie.
Gaslight them.
I think partly because I know this can happen. If you guys look into cases where people are reporting events after having a huge traumatic experience, sometimes the events get muddled in a way because your brain chemistry gets really when trauma happens.
Whoa.
So maybe he genuinely thought that his wife was bitten in front of him. And or maybe when he looked back and he saw his wife being attacked through the window, that he thought, oh, he saw her get bit, and everything like that. And so when he was telling his children that,
maybe he did see her get bit because she was bit.
Maybe, maybe necessarily he wasn't lying.
Mm-hmm.
He did. You can't make the argument, unless it was off camera, which wouldn't make any sense in this scenario, about he definitely lied about saying that he went back for her.
Mhm.
Like they didn't show in the movie at all him going back. He zoomed away.
Yeah, that he definitely lied about
Yeah,
that.
he definitely lied
He
about.
saw that she was in a corner in trouble, and
But then,
he
then on
dipped.
top of that, if that was the only lie, if you even if you still consider that he lied about the whole seeing her getting bit or anything like that,
Mhm.
like could you live with that guilt and then have to tell your children that you had to abandon their mother?
Yeah,
Could you live with both of those, or would you rather live with the guilt of lying to them for one section of the story and saying that you saw her
yeah,
die? Like
yeah.
what could you live with? That's kind of the thing.
That
What,
yeah,
like
basically.
could you live with lying with you to your kids? And because either way, he genuinely thought she was dead.
Yeah,
Like it had been so long that like he's like even if she had somehow survived, there's no way like there shouldn't have been a way that she survived. Except
yeah,
the plot of the story is that she's immune to the disease.
yeah.
And so yeah, that's really tough with the dad because like obviously and like he broke protocol and broke quarantine to get
Yep.
into the room with her, but like he's in the room with her, and again, all these people who have been around this disease and everything like that are like, well, if she was infected, she would have been turned by now,
Mhm.
and by this point in time, she was like decontaminated, hosed down, and
Yeah,
everything like that. So there wouldn't be anything on her that like could accidentally do it. So like it would make sense that he would go in there and be like, he's happy to see his wife. He begged her to forgive. She forgave him far too easily.
she forgave him far too
We
easily.
come to that.
I would have lost it on
We would
someone
like
if they
yeah.
left me like that. I would have
We can
freaking
come back to
lost it.
that specific point later
Yeah.
on, and then they kissed, and then it's like, oh, it's been established over the past two movies that any contact of like bodily fluid turns you,
Yep.
and then he turns and becomes once again patient zero of this new outbreak,
Yep.
and so like you can blame him on several fronts, but I think it does play into where you can interpret it either he was lying fully in that section about abandoning his wife, or that's how he genuinely saw it and remembers
Well,
it.
I remember. So when I was like 2 years old, I got lost at Bear Lake, and I remember it a completely different way than my family remembers it, and like that was a really traumatizing thing for me, and like as like a 2 year old getting lost and not being able to find
Yeah.
your family, but like, and I remember it so differently, and whenever I mention it, my family's like, "That's not how it happened," and I'm like, "Yes, it is," But I'm pretty sure either they're wrong, which my mind says they're wrong, or
Yeah.
my mind
Well,
messed
I
it
mean,
up.
again, in that scenario, is like, did they? Because like you got lost, so that means you were separated from them. So could they have seen every aspect of the story?
Yeah,
And then again, it's like to them that might have been a traumatic or scary
yeah,
experience as
and
well
so
too.
their memory might have
So
been
who
warped too.
knows?
Yeah,
Uh,
like
I've
losing a child is also traumatic.
I vividly remember um, when I was a kid, my mom had the car parked on the side of the road in front of our house, and I got into the driver's seat and pulled it into neutral, and
Uh-huh.
so the car just started going, and that my mom screamed and hollered and did all this stuff and came and hurry went in and pressed the brake with her foot and put it back into park.
Hmm.
For years, whenever like I would tell that story, it would be like, that didn't happen. It's like the only reason that we yelled at you is because you were honking the horn and we thought you were going to do that. And I'm like, I remember the car being like at the park.
Yeah.
And then years later, one of our neighbors is like, yeah, I remember when you were a kid and you were like in the car and you put it into neutral and it went down. And my mom's like, that didn't happen that way. And I'm like, Mom, there was a third party that saw it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so guess who remembers it? And it's
Yeah.
like, so like it all depends. And then also some things people are just like, if it's a minor quick, this happened one day 20 years ago.
Mm.
Some for anybody, it could be really hard to be like remember, or if you haven't thought about it in a while, maybe that memory combined into another. But again, this one, 28 weeks, especially in like apocalypse, can be a really long time.
Mm.
And so like I wouldn't say it was the amount of time, but definitely just emotion and just like maybe not seeing all the information and then your brain filling in the rest of the information.
Yeah, for sure. Our brains do weird stuff, homie, and homies.
And
Cool.
homas.
Cool.
Wait, whoops. Oh, whoops.
Can you say that?
Please don't sue
You
us.
just canceled us,
I
Chris.
canceled myself. I'm
you
so sorry.
canceled
I
us.
was trying to make a joke and I said something bad. I'm sorry.
It's all right. But we still have this. I have something to blackmail you with now, just so you know.
Listen, Zach and I both have collective hundreds of hours of blackmail material between the two of us. It's going to be like mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
When one pulls the trigger, we're both done.
We're both done. All right. So I want to talk about. You mentioned this, how she forgave him so easily.
Yeah. So in the context of the scene, I just want, just in case people don't know. She's been quarantined. They are like, oh, she's been bit, but she seems to be a carrier and not be affected. And her
Hmm.
husband comes in, and the last time they saw each other was him running while she was begging for him to stay and help her fight off these things.
Yeah.
And he comes in. She's strapped to a table because obviously being quarantined with a rage virus, the safest.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm so sorry, and he's like seems fairly genuine about it. And he's like, do you forgive me, please? And she's like, I love you, and then they kiss, and then it starts the whole thing. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that is, I'm like, that would.
I mean, then
like,
again, she has been traumatized too.
well, yeah, oh yeah. When you first see her, she's obviously like,
She's like panicking.
she's panicking, she's hugging her child, but then like she starts hearing
She's like Gollum, you know.
she's like she hears the helicopter noises, and she starts squeezing her son so hard that she's like hurting him and everything like that. So I can imagine like she's not in the right mental state either.
No.
And like you could still love somebody after that, but like there'd definitely be like, listen, honey, I still love you, but
Yeah.
like we need to talk. When I'm out of here, we're going to have a chat, okay?
Yeah. We're gonna get a divorce if you know.
Or at least have a like. I would feel like it'd be like we have to have a talk, because like I feel like if that was somehow me in that scenario, but I would die day one, just so everyone knows, I would die day one. Like, but if I were in that scenario where I survived that and had to live like that and got into that mental state, I I would almost, if there's any logical part of my brain still existing, be like, you know, I kind of understand why my husband, like, or significant other did this.
Hmm.
Like, I don't 100% blame him. It's still messed up,
Hmm.
but like, what if he stayed and just both of us died?
Yeah.
Like, what would have been the point?
Yeah. Well.
Then our children would have been parentless.
Exactly. And it.
And,
Yeah.
and more likely than not, he would have been infected.
I
like-
feel like this series really doesn't mess around with morality and like with actually being in the
it's-
dirt and like being so grounded in humanity. Like they don't mess around, and I
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
Yeah, I hope, because like I'll have to look back into it, because obviously like there was talks, and it's sort of insinuated at the end of this movie, kind of vaguely, that like the stuff continues even after this movie.
Yeah.
But like I want to look into to see, like, obviously it was going to be entitled something along the lines of like 28 months later. I don't know if they could do 28 years later. If this continued for 28 years, like I'm not sure if there'd be a human race left. But 28
yeah.
months is a completely different thing.
Yeah. Well, at the end we see that it's in France, so you know.
Yeah, but who cares about France?
Yeah.
They
They
probably-
probably retreated.
They
anyway.
they all raise
Oh,
their hands.
no.
They're like, we give up.
A
And
bunch of Frenchmen come in.
there's a bunch. The French military is there. There's one infected guy running at France, and they're like,
Oh no!
We give up.
We surrender.
we give up.
Oh no! Hopefully, people from France don't listen to this. Please don't sue us.
Don't sue us, France.
Don't sue us, France. The
Don't sue-
entire country of France sues us.
Yeah, nah. As soon as we get like one of those cheap, free like defense attorneys, and they're like, oh crap, and then they back off, and then we win a $20 billion settlement.
Hell yeah. I want to talk about the spying a little bit. How the soldiers are on the roofs and they're like looking through the scopes through windows.
That's completely believable.
Yeah.
They're like the soldiers peeking in and being like, "What's on TV tonight?" And like they're talking about like.
Well, I mean, they're so bored just being on roofs.
Yeah.
Like not justifying it by any stretch to like spying on people, but like it's
Yeah,
definitely
they're not
believable.
gathering information and like
Yeah.
giving it to. They're literally just watching, like people watching, and then
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh well, this guy he's jerking off," or they like it shows briefly a couple having sex, and it's
Mhm.
like,
Or it shows like kids jumping on the bed
yeah,
and
and like so like in multiple ways it kind of shows like, well, the kids jumping on the bed thing, it's like, oh, obviously it's like it didn't give a huge background to
I think
Jerry
he did have a
Ray's character.
family.
I think it's like, but it's like he sees the kids and he's like, he kind of laughs at it, and it looks like his heart is warmed by it and everything.
Mhm.
So like he might have had a family back in the States, but then imagine like you get into here and like there's not radio stations,
Yeah.
there's not TV broadcasts in this area,
No.
there's really no form of actual entertainment, and these guys probably are on duty like 12 to 15 hours a day.
Yeah, they're probably
Like,
pulling double shifts.
They probably work double shifts for like 4 days out of the week, and then they're off shift. And then what do they do off shift? Play backgammon? Like
Yeah.
what do they do? Like
Yeah, well, the guy when he was sitting in his helicopter, he was like, "I was just imagining Sunday afternoon being with my wife." Like that was
Yeah.
his entertainment.
yeah, he was literally having dreams of just walking down a beach,
Yeah.
and it's just like what, like, so it doesn't make it right necessarily to be like essentially a peeping tom,
Hmm.
but like again, if I was in that scenario, every blind would be drawn. I would be like, no one's watching me. My privacy is key. But then again, also an idea that just popped in my head. None of their blinds were drawn, so maybe they weren't allowed. Maybe they had to have their windows open because if
so
if
that
something happened in their rooms, the snipers could see and take them out. Oh,
maybe
see,
you would die if you drew your blinds, man. Yeah, hey,
I closed the
listen.
blinds.
You're
Thank God.
you either have a naked window neighbor or you are the naked window neighbor.
Always the naked window neighbor and
never having the naked window neighbor. Listen.
Yeah, that's something I didn't think about because like I don't think any of maybe if I rewatch that scene, you'd be like, oh, half of them are closed, and then my idea is stupid. But
Yeah.
that would make sense that they weren't allowed to close the blinds
Yeah.
because like
Interesting.
that definitely would be on my list of stuff. Is like no, in fact, all the blinds in the garbage.
Yeah.
It's like, sir, these are perfectly good. They could be used for like blankets or something. No, garbage.
Garbage.
Burn them too.
Burn the blinds.
Burn the
That's our new
blinds.
campaign, right?
Burn the blinds.
Burn the blind. Oh, that doesn't sound good. We're talking about blinds like you put on a window, not.
Do not sue us,
Do
blind
not
people.
I can't post this episode.
What do you mean? Because listen, we've only offended 3 different organizations, and the most powerful one was the Disney Corporation.
Yeah.
And listen,
More powerful than France.
let me tell you something. If it's not a podcast with me in it, unless we offend the Disney Corporation, okay?
I mean, you're right. You're right. All right. Well, we will be right back after a short musical break with the moral dilemma, babies.
Zimby zamba zumba zim zom zombie zomba zomba zombie zomba.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that musical interlude with a little bit of extra spice. All right. So, Chris, here's your moral dilemma. So, kind of going along with this, what are the circumstances in which it is okay to abandon someone?
Oh, obviously I'm going to preface this with it like not ever having to ever have been in one of those like true survival scenarios. It's hard for me to 100% say, but like to abandon someone, I think obviously the biggest one is that if no matter what you're going to do, it's guaranteed that like they're probably going to die or not make it or anything like that. I know in some scenarios you can't guarantee it. Like it's like that would have to be because like in that scenario, because like in the world of this movie, like if you know it's established that like they get bit, they're done.
Yeah.
It's like if you go back to the first movie with I forget the main girl's name, but like her one companion that she was with at the beginning of the movie gets bit, and like literally 10 seconds later before he turns, she just goes ham on him and kills him. And it's like, oh, in that scenario, you would have to really probably deaden yourself inside.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's one scenario where if you know for a fact that like they're not going to make it, and you trying to save them will put you and possibly others in danger, because it doesn't make any sense to try to save one person when then suddenly it's like, well, 10 other people died in order to save this one person.
Yeah.
Then like comes my second point, like survival of the group, because like if somebody's being left behind, and this is going to kind of sound like a dick move, but like if an elderly person who can't move very fast is getting like left behind, well, it doesn't even have to be a zombie scenario. Like just imagine a post-apocalyptic world, and it's just like you're running away from raiders or like people that are just chasing after you and trying to kill, maybe not kill you, but like take your supplies and everything like that. So elderly or people who aren't like physically capable, it's like it would be really hard. But I think that would be a scenario if I was put into it. Like I may not have a choice but to be like, well, I'm sorry, man, I have to leave you behind, Grandpa. I'm sorry. Like that's kind of messed up. But like that's like whenever I see older people in movies or video games and they've survived, I'm like, they probably only survived because they happened to be nearby that safe place.
Yeah.
And most of them probably, because it depends again. Most of them probably didn't grow old within the apocalypse, unless you like maybe look at like, let's say a Mad Max movie, and that takes place decades after a nuclear bomb goes off and everything like that. But in these movies, it's just like, okay. And then you always are just like, well, they're kind of also like, I'm not saying cull the weak. Don't but I'm just saying, like, if it comes to a running scenario, are you going to stay back and try to save an elderly person or a person who's not physically capable, thus possibly losing your own life or losing the life of even more people,
Hmm.
or do you just leave them behind? And like, I don't know what my instincts would tell me, but like, I think knowing myself, like, it would kick in and I'd be like, I'm so sorry, and then I would beat myself over it for the rest of my life.
Hmm.
But it would be a decision for more survival.
Hmm.
Like, I think I would choose probably like, if I was in a group, more whichever part makes the group, more of the group survive
Hmm.
than anything.
Okay, interesting. So, it just basically like comes down to survival, and like
Yeah,
if all options are depleted, then there's nothing you can do.
exactly.
Hmm.
It's like, do you want to turn around and try to fight, whether it's a zombie horde, whether in a more likely scenario in a real life, like if a real life apocalypse happens, just raiders or
So
other
if all
terrible
hope is gone, then it's okay.
Sure, yeah, I'll say
Okay,
yes. Yeah.
okay. These questions are designed to be hard, just so
Okay
you
is
know.
not what I would say, but it's
Acceptable.
the lesser of evils.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that freaking concludes season 1 of Feed Don't Eat Your Brain. Everybody party, everybody cheer.
Yeah.
Why aren't you cheering, Chris?
Because season 2 we're going to cut the budget and Zach's not going to be it, so I'm sad.
No, no, I'm coming back.
No, did you not talk to the
I'm coming
producer?
back. I'm coming. I am the producer.
No, 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 no.
What do you mean? I am the
Wait,
producer.
who am I giving $1,000 a week to?
I don't know.
Oh,
But thank you guys so much for listening. Season 2 is just gonna start up next week. I ain't taking a break, so you're welcome for me not taking a
yeah,
break.
wait for the
yet.
new opening credits sequence.
It's just gonna be us going zombie, 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 zombie.
It's 7 minutes long.
Yeah, it's 7 minutes long.
But it shows you clips of future episodes too. So wait until the big fight scene between me and Zach, and I'm. It's gonna
Yeah.
be an anime.
Yeah. But anyway, go ahead and follow us on Twitter at Zachy the Zombie, and then Instagram at Feed Don't Eat Your Brain, as well as you can email us at feeddon'teatyourbrain@gmail.com. Also follow Fortune Horseman on all the things, especially YouTube. We have a lot of short films out right now, and we have a few coming out soon. So yeah, please do that. You can also comment on the Instagram and Twitter with your moral dilemma. And yeah, thank you guys for listening. Hopefully I have some sponsors next season.
Oh,
Yeah, hopefully.
Nike?
Probably not Nike.
Disney?
Maybe Disney, sponsor me, please. No. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. Have a good night, day, whenever you're listening to this. Please be safe. Love you.
Bye bye.